pull it out until I plumb this wall. Hello everyone. Well, it's a new day and a little different scenery. I'm in an office building here that we are going to reconfigure. I'm going to move one of my offices here and need to add some dividers and build some private offices. And I have probably checked with 5 contractors and asked them to, and offered the job to them, and they just all say they're too busy. And anyway, but I'm going to do it myself. So I've got about a month to get this done before we open this office up. So I'm going to do it myself, and I've got a guy that'll come in and do some wiring for me and a little bit of plumbing, but outside of that, we're going to frame it up and reconfigure it. Anyway, I've got to separate this into 2 offices. So a divider wall will have to come across here, and then I'll divide it down the middle, and then we're going to divide this off. They've just been using these dividers, but we're going to build a permanent wall here and divide that off into a private office. And then I'm going to add some little cubicle. I may actually build something in place and build a divider so I can we'll have 3 people working over here. But anyway, we'll keep that as a conference room, but we'll see how we can do. All right, got everything laid out. Didn't really have a plan for this, but had something in mind. So I typically, if I don't have a drawing, I like to sort of lay it out on the floor. That way you can visualize and see if you're going to run into any issues. But anyway, I usually just take and tape it out. That way I can visualize how big the rooms are going to be, and what about the traffic flow, and make sure you can get desks indoors and get furniture in and out, and have a place to sit down at a desk or sit down and do anything. You've got room to do what you want to do. So anyway, now it's time to go spend the war pension and buy some material. You watched the prior video where I redesigned my tool trailer. I brought it on its maiden voyage today, and so let's see if everything seemed to stay in place. Nothing seems to be, well, I forgot to shut the drawers on the toolbox, but everything seemed to stay in place and nothing went crashing in the floor, so we'll consider that a success. All right, it's a new day. I've got bought all my lumber and got it all here. I've had to go around and cut all the little, it's got the rubber baseboard around this office, so I went around and cut out where all my walls are going to go in. Now I've got to notch my chair rail out so I can stand my walls up, but I've got everything pretty well laid out, and it's time to start standing some walls. All right, let's move on. All right, I'm getting ready to frame this first wall, and obviously you would think you just cut your bottom plate, your top plate the same length and run it. But in this case, where you're tying into an old wall, if I put the level on it, I can see that the bottom is in. So what I've done is cut a 2x4, made sure it's straight. So I can put my level on it, and I can pull it out till I plumb this wall. And so when I see what my gap is down at the bottom, there's plumb by the level. So I've probably got 3/8 down here at the bottom out away from the wall, so I'll need to take that into account when I lay my lines out. That way everything can come over here flush against the wall, and then I'll be plumb out on the end. So that gap that I've got, I'll add it to it, offset them, and that way everything will work out plumb. All right, I've cut my bottom plate out, and so I've come out here at the end, flushed everything up, and then when you come back here to the back, you can see I've cut the top plate 7/16 shorter because this wall is laying out this way, 7/16 up here. So I took 7/16 off this end, that way when everything goes out, the top and bottom will be flush, and I can lay it out on the floor and go ahead and mark all my studs, my door openings, and everything will be plumb when I put it up. My lines will line up. That's the joys of remodeling and tying into something that's already built. I've come up with a saying one time, life's not fair and crap's not square. So anyway, you just gotta do a little checking before you start nailing. It would be nice to be able to cut all these studs the same length and just build a wall on the floor, but we've got a second story or a finished space upstairs in which these joists have sagged over time. So when you get out to the middle, you just got different heights that you're dealing with. So I'm gonna have to cut them all individually, but when you're by yourself, standing on the wall, putting your top plate up is not always the most fun. I'll set you up and you can watch this circus. All right, I got my just standard studs in. Now I got to come back and finish my door openings. But I cut these individually, and I'm set up right outside the window. I got my miter saw set up out there, so I don't have to go far. But I could have measured all of these and at one time wrote them down, went out there and measured them, brought them back in here and put them in. But the reason I didn't do that is when I'm putting a stud in, I like to be able to put it in and just barely tap it over. So when you nail it, you got a little tension there so it ain't sliding around on you. So if I drive this one in and it pushes me up a little on this one, then this one might be a hair too short and it's sitting there flopping around. So no further than I had to walk. That's the reason I just cut them individually, measured them and cut them. And that way I knew they were tight and they would stay in place when I was driving them in. So next on the agenda is I'm going to cut my studs here to case my door in. But one thing, this is a not too terribly old of a building, so everything's pretty true in it. But I always like to check my floor before I cut my lengths on my rough opening. Obviously, I mean, it's a rough opening, so you got some play when you got that rough opening, but I like for it to be plumb and true across the top. So just in remodeling old houses, I learned you check the level of the floor before you build your rough opening, because you might have to add a quarter or an eighth or take away from one side or the other to keep everything plumb up here at the top when you case your doors in. So anyway, looks like the floor's pretty level. I'll cut my rough opening, put my little, the name just left me for the studs above the door. But anyway, I'll get this finished up, and then we've got a wall tying in right here that'll be dividing this room, and we'll tie it in. We're off to the races. Can't call me Speedy Gonzalez by any means, but hey, I don't think it'll fall. I'm gonna secure it now that everything's in. I'll check, make sure everything's plumb, and then I'll secure my bottom plate to the floor, and we'll be ready to roll.
Okay. So he finally gets to eat.
Supper break.
Supper break.
Video Palin.
Here's Palin. The pig.
Look at Reed.
Here's Reed.
Yeah.
Big boogers.
Your crew brought me something to eat, so I'm filling my belly up and I'll be ready to go.
We're leaving. He's gonna stay and work all night long.
It's gonna be a late one. Yep, it's gonna be a late night. All right, see y'all later. Trailer is coming in pretty handy, and I know I don't have my safety glasses. Yeah, I forgot them again. But anyway, having that light in there makes it pretty handy. I've got a little job, whatever you want to call it, job site saw or light mounted on the door for cases like this, where I can plug it up and then you can shine light over your saw or whatever it may be. But you would know it, the bulb's blown. So anyway, it's not going to help me out tonight, but it comes in real handy when it gets dark and you're having to try to get something finished. But I've just got an outlet back here where I've got one of my chargers plugged in, and I can plug it in and run it at night. But anyway, ain't gonna do me no good with the bulb blown out. All right, we got these two offices closed in and framed up. Now it's time to lay out our cubicles and get that done. We'll cut them up, stand her up. All right, on this little cubicle section, I can build my wall down on the floor and stand it up. But here's the one thing you love about remodeling. On a concrete slab, and you can tell that little gap underneath the 2x4, its floor lays pretty good. It's level all the way over to right here. And then at the wall, you got this little dip. It's probably at least a 1/2 inch, 5/8 gap. So what I'm gonna do is I'll build my wall out to this point, and then I'll go up on the wall to my height I want, and then I'll sort of custom cut these last 2 or 3 to make it go where I want it to, so the top stays level. Oh, don't we love remodeling? All right, so here's what I've done. I cut everything. I'm gonna make it like 6'4", and I'll put a 3/4 inch trim on the top. So I cut all these where the floor was level, the same. I cut all these 73 inches, and I've run my level across the top, and everything's level. Well, it's holding this board. We're level all the way across the top. You can see my bubble there. So, but what I'm going to have to do, where this hump is in the floor, I've went ahead and took concrete nails and nailed that down to take the slack out of it. But I'm going to have to add about 3/4 of an inch to my 73 inch measurement to keep this top level all the way across. So, note to the wise, if you're building a wall and you're going to be looking at the top of it, check your floor, because you might have to add or take away to keep it level. All right, making some progress. We got our little cubicles over here framed up. Have a place for 2 desks. Give them a little bit of privacy. So the framing is about done. I've got one more wall, and the 2x4 pile is getting low. So anyway, I hope I've got enough. I'm thinking I might be one short. I'll have to figure them up, but I'm gonna be cutting it close. But about done. Well, got this wall framed up. We got another little office here, divided off. And start putting some insulation in, and we'll do a little bit of wiring. We're gonna basically use what's already in place around the rooms, and not gonna add a lot of wiring. But we'll insulate it so we'll keep the sound down, and start putting some boards on the wall, try to wrap it up.